Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first webinar after the holiday season, our September webinar, and it's entitled The Operating Principles of Liquid Pumps, and that's what we're going to look on today. Now, you may or may not have noticed in your invitation email or in the box on our homepage for this webinar that we now have a name for our webinar sessions, and they are called Print Talk Live. And the reason for that is that we're going to start a blog. Actually, we already did, but it's going to be officially launched soon in the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to quickly show you how it looks like the blog. So just give me a second to share my computer screen so that you can see it. Let's do full screen. Right. And this is how our blog looks. And as you know, DigiPrint Supplies is about empowering our customers. We not only sell spare parts at a great price and a fast turnaround, but we also want our customers to be able to help themselves as much as possible. And for that, we provide tools in the shape of user guides, tutorial videos, and this blog fits in that story as well. It's a blog written by engineers for our customers, and you can find all sorts of articles on there. And it goes from A to Z. It goes from pre-press all the way to finishing. So pre-press, printing, finishing, and even application. There's a couple of articles on there, but if you look at the last one, Operating Principles of Liquid Pumps, so let's have a short look at it. And Print Talk Live of today is what this article preceded. So it's like a follow-up where we show you some stuff and go deeper than the article went. So that's Print Talk Live. And Print Talk the blogs. And like I said, it's going to be launched in the next few weeks officially, and you'll be notified by email, of course. Liquid pumps. Let's have a look at liquid pumps. And I made a very short presentation to quickly define what we'll be discussing today and what we'll be looking at today. And there's the two types of pumps that we will be looking at. There's the peristaltic pumps, very popular in large format printing machines from Roland, Util, and Mimaki. And then there's this type of pumps, diaphragm pumps, which are used more in the super wide format printers, like the ones from Vutec, Durst, and HP Cytex. So you can see in the slide a couple of different types of peristaltic pumps. Two at the bottom on the left are the old style, the traditional peristaltic pumps. Above that on the left is the new style introduced by Roland. And then next to that is the Japanese Welco pumps, which you can find in some Mimaki printers, but also in some OSSE printers and Fujifilm printers. And to the right side of the slide, you can see two diaphragm pumps of very popular brands, the Swiss K&F and the American Parker Hargreaves. All right. Now, if we look on how they operate, a peristaltic pump uses rotors that squeezes a tube and creates a vacuum so ink passes through. If you look at the movement of it, you can see that the rotor each time squeezes the tube, sucking in ink, and then pushing it back out on the outlet. So it's a very simple operating principle. What you need, of course, to get the movement is a motor. So we'll look at that a little later on how it really operates inside your printer. Now, if we look at diaphragm pumps, which you can see here, you've got two valves, one on the inlet and one on the outlet. And you've got this membrane that goes up and down. So it creates, again, a vacuum, pushing ink inside, or pulling ink inside the ink chamber and pushing it back out on the outlet. So the main difference between the two technologies or principles is that in a peristaltic pump, your ink stays in a tube, and there will be no contamination introduced into your ink by the pump. Diaphragm pump, there's no tubing. The ink doesn't stay in the tubing. Of course, there's a tubing connected to the outlet and one to the inlet, but it goes into an ink chamber. So here, in a diaphragm pump, sealing is very important. Now, if we look at the pros and cons or the benefits and the disadvantages of both types of pumps, the peristaltic pump, no contamination due to the fact that your ink stays in the tube. Low maintenance, no backflow, simply not possible. The downsides of this type of pump is that over time the tubing will degrade. That's why, and it actually degrades quite fast. Pumps are supposed to be replaced every 6 months. If you look at the maintenance schedule of your Roland, Mimaki, or Muto printer, you will see that a pump is a consumable that needs to be replaced every 6 months. And it's a pulsed flow, okay? But then again, a diaphragm pump is a pulsed flow as well. When we show you how it operates in our printer, you will see what I mean with a pulsed flow. It's not a continuous stream of ink. And the fact that both peristaltic pumps and diaphragm pumps have a pulsed flow is one of the reasons why you never have this outlet tubing, or this outlet tubing, never connects directly to your print head. You need to have a chamber that collects the ink and feeds the print head in a slow, smooth, continuous way. That's where your damper comes in, or the combination of a damper and a secondary ink tank, right? Now, diaphragm pumps can work with a much higher pressure than peristaltic pumps. They have a very high efficiency, and they are self-priming. So they're much sturdier, and that's the reason why they are used in the more high-end printers, the super wide printers, where quality and reliability are a very high concern. Okay, contamination can be introduced, but when everything is properly sealed, it's quite nearly impossible to have contamination. And again, it has a pulsed flow. We will see that as well. So, stop screen sharing. Just a second. Here we go. Now let's have a quick look on how a pump like this looks on the inside. All right. So we can see the rotors. Usually there's only 2 screws securing the cover on both sides. But actually, these type of peristaltic pumps, in contrary to the new style Roland pump and Welco pumps, can operate 2 channels. So let's open it up. And of course, since it's the tubing that degrades and that actually forces you more or less to replace your pumps, you could also consider to replace the tubes. And we have a nice guide on our support website showing you how to replace the tubing and pumps. There's a spring here, you don't want to lose that. This moves the wiper, which is usually connected to it, and here you can see the rotors. So there's the shiny things on the side. All right, there they are. And if we look inside the pump, let's just remove this shield a bit. Then you will see that the tubing simply passes inside the pump and it's squeezed by the rotors, which we just took out. So tubing can degrade, you can replace the tubing, but if you look closely here, the rotors, you can see a gear. That's a plastic gear, and it's going to break sooner or later. What you can do to assure a good operating of your peristaltic pump is to use some silicone grease on your gears. There goes a little small part, but also on your tubes. So you just do, well, not exactly on your tubes, you just apply it on the rollers, then put the roller back, of course, because that will guarantee a much smoother movement of your pump as well. So that's how these type of pumps look like. And of course, to these 2 gears, there's one here as well. bit closer. Yeah, one on this side and one on this side. They are driven by other gears, which are driven by the pump motor inside your printer. Diaphragm pumps are quite different. We saw the operating principle of diaphragm pumps, so I'm going to open one. Don't try this at home, because a diaphragm pump, when you open it, there's a bunch of seals in there, and if they are not back in the correct position, the exact correct position, then you will have a pump that leaks, which is of course not what you want. So 4 screws to make sure that this is really securely closed. It's like an awful long screwdriver today, right? And this is a double head diaphragm pump, so it can provide much more power than a single head. Do we have a single head here? Yeah, this is a single head diaphragm pump. This is a double head KNF pump. Right, get the screws out. And the fact that you actually can take this off doesn't mean that this is for maintenance or anything. It's just a way for KNF, for everybody that makes diaphragm pumps does it, to make it modular. You can have your outlet and inlet connection on this side, but you can also have it on this side. You just turn this. You can have a different seal, etc., etc. So let's open it up. Right. So see, this is how it looks on the inside, and if you look closely, you can already see 2 seals there. Take this out. A little bit of liquid is still inside. Can you hand me a bit of paper towel? Yeah, thank you. So here you can see the membrane. So that's the thing that opens and closes the in and outlet. And actually, what you see here, the 2 circular parts, are the in and outlet valves. So that's how it looks on the inside. In contrary to peristaltic pumps, diaphragm pumps always have the motor integrated. You can have a brushless motor, you can have a brush motor on there, depending on the requirements. And they come in 12 and 24 volts, these type of pumps. So let's have a look on how we can test them and how they operate. So I'm going to move the camera around so that we can look at our printer. Just a second. Down a little. See how that looks. I'd like to have it a little bit closer. So, so we have a maintenance station here, which has a pump integrated, a pump motor is driving the pump, and we just connected it to the printer so that we can drive power to it. We've got a little bottle here with 2 tubes. So if we activate the printer, yeah, and we just put some liquid on the cap, then it's going to be picked up by the pump and eventually end up into the bottle. So you can see it running here. It's a very, very simple operating principle. Now, you might have some doubts about the quality or the condition of your pump, and there's a couple of things that you can do to test it. One of the things that you can do is just hold on to the outlet tubes, and you should feel a heartbeat. If you look at how the liquid flows in this tube, then you will see it's not a continuous stream of liquid. And that's what we meant with it's a post flow, all right? And that's, like I said before, is the reason why you have dampers in your printer. All right. Some more liquid. There it goes. So this pump is still functioning like it should. So let's have a look on how we will test a diaphragm pump now. Now, take a pump to test. Reposition my camera. Like this. We've got a power supply here that can run 24. Just going to shut this one down. Okay. So that power supply can run at 12 volt or 24 volts, which are the voltages usually required by diaphragm pumps. And what we'll do is we're going to check the flow of our pump. So I'll take a stopwatch. And flow is always expressed in how many milliliters it can it can pump in a minute. Okay. So when you're ready, so as soon as I have a drop, there we go. So the pump, this particular diaphragm pump, has a specification of 350 to 400 milliliters per minute. So with 20 seconds pumping, 30 seconds, so 10 seconds remaining. And stop. Right, let's see how much we have. We have 250. So it's below specs. That's why the pump actually was replaced in the printer, because it wasn't feeding the secondary ink tanks fast enough anymore. All right. So that's a very fast way to test whether a diaphragm pump still lives up to the expectations. Apart from whether it still functions or not, you just connect it to a power supply, run 24 volts through it, and if it pumps, it pumps. But you can quickly measure the flow as well for a diaphragm pump with this principle. Okay, so that's peristaltic pumps and diaphragm pumps and how they operate, how you can test them, how you can maintain them. For peristaltic pumps, use silicone grease both on the rotors inside the pump and on the gears. Peristaltic pumps, you can open them. Just make sure that you don't lose any parts like springs and little protection plates, for instance. Diaphragm pumps are not meant to be opened, but you can test them using a universal power supply, or even when you connect three 9-volt batteries, that would allow you to test the pump as well. As long as you reach 24 volts, it's okay. So if you have any questions, I'll open the chat now. Like this. And go ahead, ask your questions. There I am. Right. Sooner or later, yes. Solvent ink, of course you use solvent resistant tubing, but it's resistant, you know? It's not like it's totally immune to solvent. So over time, solvent will always degrade the tubing inside a pump, whether it's Tygon, whether it's Norpren. Norpren will last longer, that's for sure. We tested that multiple times, and also in the field we see that Norpren lasts longer than any other solvent-resistant tubing. But in the end, yes, it will be degrading. Hence why I said that a peristaltic pump is a consumable that is advised to be replaced every 6 months. Any other questions? Shoot. See questions coming up. Of course, like always, if you want to watch it again, the webinar, there's some parts that maybe went a bit too fast, or there's something that you want to see again, you can check it on our support website as well as our YouTube channel. Well, if the well, that's a bit of a personally, Kenny, I would replace the pump. Why? Because the price of a pump is fairly low. But if your peristaltic pump still has good gears on them, then you could consider replacing tubing. What actually happens a lot is that people just order a couple of meters of tubing and keep it in their spare part kit. And if they are facing issues, and you will see it quickly if your maintenance station is full of ink, then it's possible that your tubing is so far degraded that leaks occurred. Then you can quickly replace the tubing inside the pump and continue printing on the same day. But I would replace the entire pump if I have it available, or after I replace the tubing, I would order a new pump and then replace it. So replacing tubing is possible, but personally, I see it more like a guarantee for my production. You're welcome. Yes. Everywhere that ink passes inside a UV printer, you should use black tubing. Now, some UV printers use transparent tubing, but inside an area, like inside the carriage, where normally there's no light that is able to touch that tubing. And the reason is that for viewing purposes, you sometimes need a transparent tube to know whether ink is passing through or not. But in general, you need to have a UV resistant black tubing for any tubing inside your UV printer. Otherwise, your UV ink will cure inside your tubing. All right. And the type of black tube really depends on the ink. Polyurethane, high trail tubing is all UV resistant, UV ink resistant tubing. Great. Any other questions, guys? You're welcome. So I'm quickly typing the address where you can find our blog. Of course, this blog will be integrated with our website once it is officially launched, the blog. And like I said, you will receive an email for that. We've got our engineers writing articles. You can check out their BIOS on printtalk.wordpress.com as well. And like I said, it's from A to Z. It's things that customer can understand and that relate to their jobs. So it's for print operators, pre-press operators, people working with finishing equipment, etc., etc., etc. And it's going to be available in multiple languages. Today only English, but by the time it's launched, Italian will be added, and then other languages will be added as well. Great. So, like I said, if you want to watch it again, check out our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com and type Digiprint Supplies, and check out our support website. It will be available there for offline viewing as well. And hang on a second. Just another question. Does the normal clear tubing in a solvent printer need replacement on a regular basis? Not that much. And the reason is because the solvent resisting tubing used inside the printer to get the print from your to get the ink from your ink cartridge through to your print head is 9 out of 10 is nylon tubing. And nylon tubing is not only a solvent resistant tubing, but it's a long-term solvent resistant tubing. So I see people replacing it, but usually it's after a long time of inactivity. Playing with my pumps. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you again next month. Have a nice day. Cheers.